what is not the norm, what's impossible, what all the theorists say you shouldn't be doing this. That's the wrong way to go. And I'm like, let me see if I can pull this shit off. Yeah, let me go over here, man. Let me see if I can pull this shit off.
Was that part of the challenge, the decision? I mean, it seems to me that the decision to self-publish was generated more by a desire to really, own your story.
That's it, 100%. There was no driven message with me trying to prove people wrong or whatever. It was 100% by me wanting to own my life. There's a lot of people I know that I speak with right now that have nice book deals out there, and the people who buy their book with their publishing house, they can't even talk some of this stuff, in like in speaking engagements. And I'm like, what? You can't even talk your story? And some of these, they're like, no, I got to make sure that they're aware of it. And I'm like, no, man. Mm-hmm. I want to own 100% of the suffering I went through in my life. I don't want anybody telling me, hey, Goggins, you can't say this. I would lose my shit. What I suffered this badly, and you're gonna fucking tell me I can't say this? Right. There've been all kind of problems with that one. Uh-huh. So I made sure that I wanted to own all of Can't Hurt Me and own all of my own life story. So that's what it really is all about.
Well, you really have ownership not only of your own story, but your ability to tell it.
Right.
And as somebody who's like a member of the ultra community, I remember, and I think we talked about this last time. You kind of disappeared for a couple years there from around I don't know what it was, 2009, 2010 to about 2013.
Yep, that's it.
You had like a website and a blog that would get updated once in a while, and I would check in and try to see what you were up to, and you just went totally dark.
I went ghost, man.
Yeah, and I didn't know about the heart stuff. There was something about there's a health thing that you're dealing with.
Right.
And I thought, oh, this guy's just disappeared.
Right.
But that was the recruiting era, right? Where you were just on the road telling your story and putting in the reps on how to tell your story.
So it was the recruiting era for me when I started becoming like the Navy SEALs needed more blacks in the SEAL teams. And that's what people don't understand. Why did you become a recruiter in the SEAL teams? I was one of the few black guys, and I'd already done Badwater. So I got a little bit, small bit of notoriety for doing Badwater. And so the Navy SEALs were like, oh my God, we could use this guy to try to get the 1% of the African Americans in Navy SEALs up to maybe 2%. And so I hit the road and started doing that. But I also I'm not a big guy on social media. So I was actually happy to kind of pull away from it. I'm just not big on that stuff. Even today, I'm just not a big fan of it, man. I'm a big introvert. I get a lot of my strength from being introverted, and going out there and doing what I do is all this is very difficult for me, man. All of it.
Yeah, it's funny when you say you're introverted because you're so good, when it comes to sharing your story, and it's so compelling. And there's a lot of people out there they're quote unquote like influencers or whatever who would be like, wow, this guy's got, I don't know, what do you have, 600,000 plus on Instagram or something like that. Yeah. And for somebody you're averse to it, you don't like it, you hate it, you only post once in a while, you don't really advertise what you're doing at all, but you've grown this huge following of people who are super interested in what you're doing.
Well, I think it's important to do things you don't like. And I was very ashamed of my life story for a long time. I didn't want to go out and tell anybody shit about me. So that's why I had two people. I created one David Goggins and one Goggins.
Right.
And I didn't want people to know that I had all these issues. But after a while, people start to give you these different taglines. You're superhuman, you're amazing. I'm like, you fuckers don't know anything about me, man. I'm this insecure kid. And I started realizing there's a lot of people out here who are going through a lot of problems that I once tapped into. I had a whole bunch of issues growing up. And, I felt compelled to just, you know what? Mm-hmm. You got to start sharing this stuff, man, because people see where you're at today. They see where you're at today. They see the man you are today, this rock hard human being. Show these people where you come from.
Right.
Show these people it's possible.
It's funny when you're reading the book, once you get into the later chapters, 6, 7, or 8, all the way to the end, you start to forget chapters 1 and 2.
That's right.
And you start thinking this guy is a superhuman, and then you got to remind yourself, oh man, look where he came from.
Right. I actually do that in the audiobook. In the audiobook, while Adam's reading, we have a moment where we stop because we're like 6 or 7, 6, 7, 8, where I start doing all these crazy feats and start going way beyond human limits for myself. And I tell people, while you're hearing this, I know you guys have already forgotten about how I came up. Don't forget the torture I endured mentally and physically in my own mind, going through all this shit. So don't ever forget that. So people forget that so quickly when they get to that 7, 8, 9, 10 chapters. So it's
yeah. We should just mention the audiobook. I mean, the book is amazing, but the audiobook is next level. And part of that is because you guys kind of broke the paradigm here.
Right.
You made this somewhat risky decision to have Adam read most of the book, and we can get into the reasons behind that, which I think are well considered. But then after each chapter, you and Adam break it down podcast style, like informally, where you just freestyle on what that chapter was all about. And that just brings it to life in like this technicolor way, which makes it just such a compelling experience.
Well, everything I do, I try to do my very best. And now that I'm out here trying to share this story with people, I want to be so real and so fucking authentic to the point where it was embarrassing to me. As I was writing some stuff and I was giving it to Adam and we were going back and forth, I'm like, man, I was talking to my fiance, do I really want people to fucking know this about me?
But that's the power, man.
And that's the power
strength that
of
you
it,
have
man.
to summon to be that vulnerable, because that's how people are going to be able to emotionally connect.
Exactly.
When they look at what you've done in Badwater and all the buds and all that kind of stuff, it becomes difficult for people to relate to that. But when you have the strength and the fortitude to share those parts of your life that do embarrass you or provoke shame in you, that's the real shit.
I had to show people I was human. People didn't think I was human. They thought I came from outer space, man, from some spacecraft and shit, and landed down here and just formed Goggins from the rocks and the soul of the earth. No, that's not how it is, man. So I said, I'm gonna share a secret with you all.
Well, in one of the recaps, you tell Adam writing this book was the hardest thing you've ever done. And as somebody who's done a lot of hard shit, that was a surprising thing to hear.
Well, looking in the mirror at yourself, because I did a really good job by creating this guy I am now. So I can just go by and just live by this guy here. This is who I am.
Do you think of it as like this, because you refer to yourself in the third person
Always.
all the time, right? So it's like this character that you're trying to aspire to be that's distinct from you. Like you create this like division. How does that work?
It's a big division because when I talk to people, like I see where I'm at today, but I know where I come from. And it's kind of hard to almost separate that. I'm almost, not in a way I'm kissing my own ass, but I'm amazed at what a human being can actually do. So when I start talking to myself in the third person, it's strictly because I know that I literally made this human being out of just like a whole bunch of scraps. And I wasn't, I wasn't a mechanic. I wasn't a carpenter. So I didn't know how to do any of this shit. I wasn't trained in how to build a human being from nothing. Like my mom didn't train me. My dad didn't train me. Life didn't train me. Well, life did train me.
Yeah.
Life did train me, correction. And I started putting this scrap metal together. I'm like, I wonder what the fuck's going to happen. The first year I tried to do was all fucked up. And after a while, I started learning more and more and more through pain and suffering. I started learning so much about stuff. Before I knew it, man, I built this beautiful car. And I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? And I knew how, and I know how to do it because I have all the tools. Through all the failure I went through trying to build this person who's Goggins.
Yeah, and that was something that came across loud and clear, which is it's not like you develop this toolbox and then everything worked out. Like,
No.
It's like there's so many ups and downs and highs and lows, and you're constantly getting knocked down again.
A lot of Home Depot shopping for that toolbox, brother.
Yeah. And I think the real gift that's built into this whole thing is how you reframe vulnerability. Like we tend to think of vulnerability as a weakness or, somebody who's soft.
Right.
And you embody it in a completely different structure to show people that it is strength. Like if you want to be hard and you want to be strong, vulnerability and open-mindedness are the keys to that kingdom.
And you said it perfectly there. The one thing that made me who I am today is being vulnerable. It's breaking myself down to the absolute rock bottom and being able to tell people who I am. And that's how I fixed it. Literally, being able to look somebody in the eye and say, you know what, man, I have a whole bunch of character problems, character flaws. I've lied about this. I've cheated here. I'm insecure here. This isn't the real me. I lied to you about that. I wanted your acceptance in life. All those things happen. But the thing about it is that we get judged so quickly by who we are. We don't know. We don't go to where it happened. You know, life created this person, me. Life created me to be this fucked up person that I was back in the day. And I had to realize, man, that's okay, man. It's not my fault. Now I gotta go back and fix this shit, though. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this isn't your fault, why you do some things you do, why you feel the way you feel. But no one's coming back to save your ass. You have to go back to where the shit started, wherever that place is for everybody, and have the courage to go back there and start fixing what broke you. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, hey, I'm fucked up. I'm gonna go back and fix this, though.
You got to be honest with yourself
100%.
About where you're at.
100%.
People don't like that.
Oh, it's ugly.
Yeah.
And what's funny about it is that as you're trying to fix yourself and dig yourself out of this deep hole that life, society, and you helped also, those people who you saw down there in that hole who were there with you, who were your friends and people who you counted on, because you meet the people in the same situation that you're in life. Those people become your friends. And the second you try to get out of that situation and become better, those people are in that grave, in that dungeon, just yanking at your heels, man, saying, get the fuck back. Oh, no, come on back here, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna make me feel like shit by you getting out of this hole.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
So I get that all the time now. People would constantly remind me of who I used to be back in the day. And they always come out of the woodworks, man. Versus my
That's still
God.
happening?
You know what? When you come from a small town, and you come from a place that a lot of people don't want to come out of it and get out of it, and all you want to do is become somebody, when you have small town mentality is a real mentality. You've got to be able to get out and let your mind see open-mindedness. Because a small town, what it does to you is it closes your mind, completely closes your mind. Not everybody. This isn't everybody. A lot of people. You have to be able to go out there and create open-mindedness. You need space. You need space to see the world. Like a lot of racism, a lot of ignorance in the world, it comes from people not being out and seeing other things, seeing other people, seeing all kind of shit. That's why we judge so harshly, because our minds are so closed to the reality of life, period.
Have you been back to Brazil?
I went back to Brazil a couple of times, and I have nothing wrong with Brazil. Because once again, another thing about growth is you can't hold on to hate. Mm-hmm. You can't hold on to hate. And see, once you take a different step, so I had to take a step out of my life because once you're in that hell, that's all you see is what's in front of you. When I stepped out of it, I saw Brazil very differently. There were a lot of great people in Brazil. Some of the best people I knew were from Brazil. But when you're in hell, all you see is a little patch in front of you of the kids that are calling you nigger. Or the people that spray painted nigger were going to kill you on your car. Mm-hmm. People put that shit in your locker. People put that shit on your notebook in Spanish class. That's all you see. You didn't see that, my God, a lot of people fucking like me here. So once you take a step back and see the reality of the true ignorance that you're dealing with from a small group of people, that's when you get growth. Because, I went through a phrase in the book I talked about, man, I was all about black and only black when I was a junior in high school because I was so beat down. Mm-hmm. I was the most ignorant I've ever been in my fucking life when I went there. I totally took everything, all the hurt, all the pain, and just put it in one fucking filter. I got to find people who look just like me and act just like me to find acceptance.
That when you were doing the crazy haircuts. And
that's the crazy haircuts. Watching Malcolm X video every damn night when I went home and shit. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So the last time you were here, we kind of recapped your story chronologically, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but there's a lot of new people listening, so I think it's worthwhile to kind of catch people up on exactly who is David Goggins and where you were, where you came from, what you endured, and how you arrived at this place. Is there a way to do that concisely?
I can do it pretty quick, I guess. Mm-hmm. I was born in Buffalo. My dad was owned skating rinks and owned bars. And he was a very insecure guy, and he was an alcoholic. He used to get women for favors. So my dad, I'm not saying he was a pimp. I always say he's a pimp because that's how I look at it. My mom said the proper way to say this is that your dad used to get women, and he would exchange women for favors. So there you go.
That's pretty much a pimp.
He was a pimp, right? He was a fucking pimp. So basically, that's my dad. He was a guy that didn't care much about anything but himself.
But he was kind of a baller in your community,
He was a big baller,
right?
Knew O.J. Simpson big time. Knew all the Buffalo Bills. Him and Rick James were best friends.
Wow.
So we had two different sides. It was the side that everybody saw, which was the side of this man. Your dad is so damn cool, man. He's awesome. And we lived on Paradise Road. The second that door was shut in that house, it was game on. The real him would come out. It was a perfect Jekyll and Hyde. So when you're born into that at a young kid, and like you're getting beat for no reason, I'm not. Whippings are whippings, man.
Yeah.
But this guy would beat you for no reason, just because he was drunk, just because he saw you, whatever.
It's like kind of like an Ike Turner character.
Ike Turner probably on steroids.
Right.
So that's who he was, and he was a perfect person for psychological warfare. The beatings were horrible, but the mind torture was the worst. Mm-hmm. He got so deep in my head as a young kid, and that really fucks up your foundation. When you're born, man, there's some sensitive years in there, man, where your brain starts to develop and it starts to give you self-esteem, courage, confidence, all those things. And my dad was stripping that away from everybody. And when you see your mom, the worst thing to do is when you see your mom getting beat senseless at a young kid. Mm-hmm. That shit scars you permanently.
I mean, she was like a prisoner.
She was a prisoner.
Guy. And what you guys had to do to escape and get away from him is like insane.
So she was 19 when she went there, and she was an innocent 19-year-old, and she came from a great family, and she met this man, and totally just it was brutal. It was very sadistic the way she was tortured by him, and the way my brother and myself were, and that broke me and my brother up. My brother loved my father a lot. He saw something very different than I saw, because whenever my mom and I would get beat, my brother, I'm not calling him a coward by any means. He handled it very different than I did. He would go in his room. He didn't want to see the beatings. I would protect my mother. So in that, I saw a lot more of the violence. I was trying to protect her. And me trying to protect her, I really got beat. Mm-hmm. So when you're constantly in that battle, in that struggle, and your brother's going in a different room because he didn't want any part of this shit,